Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be working on a TEAC 3.5a. This one basically focuses on using pictorial models, number lines, and equations to solve one- and two-step addition and subtraction problems. So what we're going to do today, though, for our learning goal is we're going to use pictorial models to represent one- and two-step addition and subtraction problems. Okay? And we're going to be focusing on the base 10 block pictorial models, okay? So our success criteria for us to do today to make sure that we understand how to use base 10 blocks to complete these problems is I can draw base 10 models, I can identify flats, rods, and units, I can identify the value of flats, rods, and units, and I can show how many units make a rod and how many rods make a flat. So I know that seems like it's quite a bit of information to take, but a lot of you have already messed with base 10 blocks before, so you kind of have an idea of how they work. But I'm going to show you today how you can use that knowledge that you already have to help you solve math problems, okay? So what I have here is I have a little chart that shows flats, rods, and units. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you the easiest way to draw your flats, rods, and units for when you're trying to solve your math problems, okay? So I've got my little marker down here. And a flat, as you can see, a flat is a big square, right? So it's a big square, and it's made of 10 rods or 100 units, okay? You see all the little squares in there? So the easiest way to draw this is to draw it just like a square. So when I'm completing problems, showing you, modeling how I'm going to use the base 10 blocks to complete this, I'm going to do my flats like this. Okay? And flats are worth 100. So flats are worth 100 each. Next is the rods. Okay, so for rods, guys, you can either do a straight line or you can draw like a tall rectangle just like this. You see, it's not even perfect, but just for the sake of using pictorial models, this is for me. I don't have to make it look perfect for anyone but myself. As long as I know what it is, then that's what matters and I can solve my problem, right? Now, a rod is equal to 10. Okay? All right, and when we get to the units, you see a unit is just one little tiny piece, right? So usually I like to draw a unit as a smaller square. Or I've even seen some kiddos draw them as like small circles. That's fine. As long as you know that this is equal to 1 unit, which is equal to the place value of 1, right? So we have our flat, which is equal to 100. We have our rod, which is equal to 10. We have our unit, which is equal to 1. Now, that's us identifying. So we have drawn base 10 models. We identified them as a flat, a rod, and a unit. And we've identified the values of each base 10 block, right? Flats are worth 100. Rods are worth 10. Units are worth 1. And then the last thing that I wanted to get into before we started using this to help us solve problems is I wanted to show how many units make a rod and how many rods make a flat. So the reason they're called base 10 blocks is because it takes 10 of one type of block to make the next block over. So for units, it's going to take 10 units to make a rod. That's why a rod is worth 10. If it takes 10 single units to make a rod, that's why a rod equals 10. So how many units do you think make a flat? If you answered 100 units, you're right. How many rods make a flat? The answer is 10. So, in order to make a rod, we have to have 10, right? And then in order to make a flat out of a rod, we have to have 10 rods. Okay? The reason that's important is because when we're adding and subtracting, we might have to regroup. We might have to make a new rod, or we might have to take a flat and break it down into rods, right? So we need to understand how many units make a rod, how many rods make a flat, how many flats make a rod, and how many rods make a unit. Okay? So we need to know how it works both ways, back and forth. Okay, so now we're going to get into the I do portion of the lesson. I'm going to start modeling how to use our flats, rods, and units to start solving. All right, so we're going to move right over here to question number 1. All right, and I'll go ahead and read it for you. Question 1 says, Frank had 275 hot dogs in his refrigerator. He went to the store and bought 128 more. How many hot dogs did Frank end up with? Okay, so I can tell by looking at this one here that it is a one-step math problem, which means that I'm only going to have to do one process to solve. So first things first, I need to look at the numbers that I'm using, and then I'm going to draw my base 10 models to model those numbers to make it easier for me to add them together. So Frank had 275, okay? So our flats are going to be the hundreds, right? We have 2 hundreds. So I'm going to draw 2 flats. Okay? Easy peasy. 100 plus 100 is 200, right? And then we have a 7 in the 10 spot. So that means we're going to have 7 rods. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, then we're going to move over into the 1 spot. These are going to be our units, right? So I've got a 5 there, so we're going to use 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is our base 10 representation of 275. Okay, it says he went to the store and bought 128 more, right? So I feel like we're going to be adding more to what he already has. So let's put a plus sign here. And then we're going to add in our 128 in the base 10 model format, right? Okay, so we have a 1 in the 100 space, which means we're going to have 1 flat. We have a 2 in the tens place, which means we're going to have 2 rods. And then we have an 8 in the ones place, which means we're going to have 8 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so now we have our math problem drawn out for us in base 10 model. All we have to do now is add everything together and regroup and get our final answer. So I usually tell my students when they're adding to always start adding with your ones. So since we're using base 10 model, we're going to add with our ones, which are the units. We're going to add those first. So we have 5 units up here. We have 8 units down here, right? So let's just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have 13 units. Okay? Now, if you remember what I was talking about before, it takes 10 units to make a rod, right? So that means we're going to have to regroup some of these units into a rod, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Whoops. So we're going to take this one in the tens place for the units, and we're going to move it right over here. So we're going to mark out that 10 right there, and we're going to draw another one right here. Okay? So we've got a 3 down here for our answer. Now we're going to add the rods. Same thing, we're just going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we have exactly 10. If you remember me telling you, when we have 10 rods, we have to regroup them to a flat, aka regroup it to a hundreds place, right? So we're going to draw our number 10 down here, just like we did with our units over here, right? This 1 is going to become a flat, and the 0 is going to come down here with our answer. Okay? So then last but not least, we just have to count our flats. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to draw that there. And since we don't have anything to regroup, we can pull it straight down. So Frank is going to end up with 403 hot dogs. That is a lot of hot dogs. Okay, let's move on to question 2. Now this one is a little more difficult because I decided I was going to do a 2-step problem for this one, so you guys can see that we can use base 10 model for 1-step and 2-step problems, okay? So I'll read the question. Jill went to the store to buy some oranges for her school. She bought 220 oranges. When she got back to the school, she saw they already had 145 oranges. 74 of the oranges went bad. How many good oranges did she have? Okay, so this is a 2-step problem. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with our 220 oranges. We're going to go ahead and draw that in our base 10 models, right? So we've got a 2 in the 100 spot, which means we've got how many flats? 2 flats. And then we've got a 2 in the 10 spot, which means we've got 2 rods. And then we've got a 0 in the unit spot, which means we don't have any units on this number, right? So this equals 220. Okay, now it says when she got back to the school, she saw they already had 145 oranges. So if Jill bought 220 oranges, but they already had 145 oranges, then we're going to add those together, right? So we'll just go ahead and draw our little add sign here so that we know that we're adding, okay? So it says they already had 145 oranges. So let's go ahead and draw that in base 10 model. 1 flat. How many rods? We've got 4. And then we have 5 units. So we've got 5. Oh, see that? I almost messed up. We got 5 little squares to make our units. That one's a little bit bigger, but that's just because he ate more breakfast growing up. Okay, so 145 here, right? And 220 up here. So we're going to go ahead and add these first. This is step 1, okay? So we're going to add these together first. So we always start with our units, right? So do we have any units up here? No, we don't. So we're just going to bring our 5 down. Okay, then we're going to count our rods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't have anything in the tens place to regroup, so we're just going to bring it straight down, right? And then we're going to count our flats. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so we didn't have anything to regroup there either, so we get a total of 365 oranges. Now, that was step 1, right, guys? So since that was step 1, we still have a little bit more to do before we have our final answer. Because 74 of these oranges went bad, right? So now we have to take this number and subtract 74 from it to find out how many oranges Jill ended up with, okay? So we're going to go ahead and erase this. Okay, 365 was our number. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's draw that in base 10 form, right? So we've got 3 flats. We've got 6 rods. And we've got 5 units. Okay, now 74 of those oranges went bad. We're going to subtract them. So we're going to subtract 74. Okay, so we don't have a number in the hundreds place. So we're not going to have any flats down here. But we've got a 7 in the tens place. So how many rods am I going to draw? 7, right? 1. Oh, man. These rods are kind of hard to draw with this mouse, but they look okay, I guess. 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there's our 7 rods, and then we've got 4 units here. Okay, so now when we get done here, we're going to have our answer, right? Okay, so same thing with addition. Start with the ones. Always start with the ones. The reason being, because then you know, number one, you know if you're going to have to regroup to the left, or if you're subtracting, you know that if you're going to have to regroup to the right, okay? So we always start with the ones because it makes it easier for us to find out what we need to do, what process we need to do, okay? So 5 is up top, 4 is below. Can we take 4 from 5? Yes, we can. Easiest way to do it is mark out 1 to 1, right? 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. Leaves us with 1 unit. So we're going to bring that down, okay? All right, and then we have a 6 up top, and we have a 7 below. Can we take 7 away from 6? No, we can't, right? Because 7 is bigger than 6. It's a larger number. So we're going to have to regroup. Okay, so this goes back to what I was telling you guys about how flats are made of 10 rods and rods are made of 10 units, right? So now we're going to have to take one of these flats and we're going to have to mark them out, and then we're going to have to add 10 rods to this group of rods right here, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I know my rods are a little misshapen, but you get the picture. Okay, so now up here we've got these 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Can I take 7 away from 16? I most certainly can. And we can use the same way we did over here with these rods, right? So 1 to 1. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. How many are we left with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. Okay? And then these flats over here, we don't have to do anything special with them. We just bring them straight down. We've got 1, 2. Bring it straight down. So, folks, the answer that we have here is 291. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, let's do one more. I'm going to show you how to do one more here. And then I've got a couple of questions that I want you guys to try with me, okay? And then we'll move on from there, okay? So this question is, George opened a 500-piece puzzle. When he counted the pieces, he only had 367 pieces. How many puzzle pieces is George missing? So this one's a little tricky. He started with 500-piece puzzle, or he opened a 500-piece puzzle, but he only counted 367 of them. So we're looking for how many he doesn't have, right? Or how many he's missing. So I see this as a subtraction problem, right? Because in order for me to find out how many more pieces he needs to complete the 500-piece puzzle, we need to subtract what we already have to find out what we don't have, okay? So 500 is super duper easy to draw in base 10 form, right? So we've got 5 flats, right? Man, my drawing is not very pretty on this computer. It doesn't look that good in person either, though. Okay, so this is 500. We don't have any rods. We don't have any units because it's just 500. There's no number in the tens or ones, just zeros, right? Okay, and we're subtracting 367. So we've got our 3 in the hundreds place. We've got 6 rods, because we've got a 6 in the tens place. And we've got 7 units. And you guys are going to like this one because this one I have to regroup all the way down. So you get to see that process. Okay, so we've got 500 minus 367, correct? Okay, so we always start with our ones, right? I have no ones up here. There's no units, right? Can I take 7 units away from nothing? No. So the first thing to do is to look to the left to see if I can regroup a rod to make some units. But folks, there's no units here either. So now I have to regroup from the next number over, which is the hundreds place, right? The next place value over. So I'm going to have to take a flat to make 10 rods. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and now I can take one of these rods to make 10 units. See that? Super awesome, right? So I regrouped all the way from the hundreds place to be able to get some tens and be able to get some ones in there so that we can do our top to bottom solving here, right? All right, let's move this down just a tad so we can see what we're working with here. Okay, so always start with our units. We're going to subtract this from this. 1 to 1, right? 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. So we're left with 1, 2, 3. Okay? Then we're going to do the same thing with our rods, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? 1, 2, 3 rods left. Okay? Then we just got to do the flats. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 flats up here. We've got 3 flats down here. Same old, 1 to 1, right? 1, 2, 3. Got 1 left. Folks, there is our answer. So old Georgie boy is missing 133 puzzle pieces. Okay, so that was awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I think that was pretty exciting. We got to go through 3 different problems together. You guys got to see how I do it. Now, you guys are going to get a chance to do some yourself.